So today's episode, we have 5 people, all pretty much within £5,000 of each other in terms of what we think this property is going to sell for. So there's a group of people here, all thinking the same kind of thing. Now the real question here is, for a 4-bedroom house in Finchley going to auction, needs loads of work doing to it, structurally unsound, how much would you pay for it? Watch till the very end to find out what this property sells for.
So today we are looking at a freehold house in Finchley, guide price of £365,000, and it is a 3-quarter house or a 3 or 4 bed house, whichever way you want to look at it. Mm-hmm. Today we are joined by Jamie, who is a home buying superstar, and we're also joined by Jess Leader, who is another all-round property superstar, and obviously Jay and PR are obviously with us as well today. So talking about this property, no viewings, no access.
Dangerous structure,
yeah,
falling apart.
It's obviously got lots of different problems with it, and it's guided really, really well for what it is in the space that it's in. And we have done a few checks and it doesn't look like it's a property trader. So it looks like it's a genuine vendor or someone that genuinely needs to dispose of this. So start with you, Jamie. What's your thoughts on this property?
I'll be honest, I'm not overly aware of North Finchley property values. I'm just looking at it from what I can read. And if it was me, it's something that I'd probably avoid. Okay. It's probably a little bit too rich for my interest. But you know me, I love anything with complexity, anything that's got no viewings, no internals, or lack of information, shall we say, and transparency from the seller. It might be worth a punt, but...
Would you buy this if it had occupancy unknown?
Yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, that's where it gets difficult, yeah. No, I think it's always difficult, isn't it? It's you buy where you know. But for me, it's just something I can't get into that one. That's just something that I look at and think, you've got to really have a stomach to go into that one, especially given the circumstances.
Is it almost too simple in terms of the complexity that it offers? Because it's all out there for people to understand rather than hidden away.
Yeah.
Right.
I just struggle to get comfortable with it. And that sounds really weird. Maybe I'm being a little bit, in one aspect, I'm very confident and very all about the risk. But then in this one, I don't know, it's just something that I don't know what I'd do with it.
But I think you're from Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, and you're familiar with those kind of areas, and I think you're really good with risks, but within a certain kind of
environment, like
environment,
yeah. It is its own micro economy, microclimate as well. And I know Jay probably knows a lot of people that will be interested in this kind of thing. In that area, anything that comes on sub 500k freehold will go nuts.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and especially I think this one is the attractiveness of it is that it's probably a private seller and it's priced really well. It's in a very affluent part of London, and when the property requires a lot of work, this is the best auction lot. I think everyone kind of expects this lot to do fairly well, and it will attract families and end users, and those are the people that are willing to pay the most for properties.
Jess, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly what you just said. I think it's going to be there's going to be a lot of bidding on this property. It is in a really nice area to live. It's in we said before, it's in a really popular area to live in, and it is priced really attractively. And I think the people who are going to go and look at it are people who are going to live in it, people who are builders who are going to go and live in it, and they just think, you know what, I'll pay a bit over. It might be worth 700 grand or so at the end. So I'm prepared to put my own labour into that and live,
and they don't need the margin necessarily on it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's who's going to buy it. But I think it's going to be really, really lots of interest in this one.
Hi, I'm Michael Allison. I'm the commercial director at Roma Finance, and one of the things we know are key when it comes to buying properties at auction is the ability to speak to the decision maker. At Roma Finance, you have access to your dedicated underwriter who will take your case from application all the way through to completion.
Okay.
So I mean, I quite like these because it's very rare that they say, no access because the building is unsafe. So you then have to ask yourself, what is the quantum of that unsafe? If you're walking on the floor, does that mean the floorboards are going to fall in? Does it mean that the ceiling from the first floor is going to fall in? Does it mean that there's some kind of structural slippage? Or, it's Finchley, but Finchley is still kind of close enough to that Enfield side of exiting London where there was a lot of mining and stuff like that. So a mining report in that part of London is still quite important. So it's cheap. There's a reason it's cheap, even though it's not a trader. So the first thing I would be thinking about is end values there. You've got to be quite comfortable around the 750 mark, right? Because big houses in that part of London, they sell well. In the right kind of road in Finchley, £1 million is not completely unheard of. And it needs a lot of work. It looks messy. This is kind of the advert child for what an auction property should be. You know, if you're looking at a good Homes Under the Hammer advert, that property is front and center. So it's going to do well. There's quite a lot of local communities in the Finchley area that will be buying just because it's near the local religious building where they pray, where it's the right kind of school. Or it's got, you know, it's London, but it backs onto a lovely bit of greenery. But the moment you put in the marketing, no viewings because the building is unsafe, all of a sudden, the interest level in a property like that goes through the roof. You would think
it's not a seller at that point.
You would think it would be the opposite, that, oh, no one can get in, the building is unsafe, everybody runs away from it. It is the complete opposite. How that statement magnetizes people to this property, the number of people that are going to register and download the legal pack on this will be over 150.
Wow.
Guaranteed.
Well, we know, you know, I've sold a lot of properties previously in areas where there's certain communities in Sheffield, in Birmingham, in London even. And when you have certain communities, they all want to live there as well.
Yeah.
With their cousins, family. They will overpay for stuff because it's very rare to find opportunities like this as well.
And when we talk about like an end user, owner, occupier buying this, one thing that they don't have to contend with is that they don't need a profit. So if you're an investor or developer, you need to bake in a margin. An end user, owner, occupier doesn't need that. They just need to know it's going to be worth X at the end of it. It's going to cost them that much to do it. And they'll get a 70, 80% mortgage. Yeah. Done.
I think there's one important point here as well. There's a lot of traders that live in and around Finchley.
It's a big trader mecca, yeah.
I think there might actually be, this might be a trader that ends up buying it, overpaying for it, because we've seen traders overpay for stuff in areas where it ticks a lot of boxes. Try and trade it out again, but also have the worst case that they might be able to renovate it and a family member live in it or rent it or whatever. So it actually is quite an attractive property all round because it's still relatively pretty cheap for them.
My gut would be you're perfectly, someone like that could buy it, but their exits are limited because the seller in this situation is probably selling it in the best auction to get the best price. That's not us, you know, playing favourites with Auction House London. They're going to get a bloody good price for this seller. So the trader's mentality is, if I have to take it out of Auction House London, what trading environment do I put it into? Now you have options. You could go with Savills. You could go with one or two others.
Allow viewings.
Allow viewings.
Don't put the fact it's got structural problems. Go into Savills. There you go.
And you know, if they pay $550 for it in Auction House London and it turns up in Savills at 300, then you know what kind of conversation that's been had and how they're creating a value by making the asset look even more scarce, by putting the right kind of competitive guide price that's going to drag in 300 people to register for the legal pack instead of 150. And that's how they will create those little edge points to take it from a really good auction that's going to sell it well to take it to another good auction that's going to sell it well. They have to reinvent the asset somehow. And pricing and taking the pictures from a distant angle or clearing that front garden up and making it look 10% better.
Would you guys take it on as a project?
I wouldn't. I think there's no margin in it as a developer.
Well, I've just sat here listening to everybody. I mean, what we thinking the end value is of the property? Where we got? I
think you can comfortably say 700. Comfortably.
Okay. Yeah. So you're saying it's 700,000, right? Yeah. How many square feet is it, or square meters?
Well, it's a 4-bedroom.
Is it a 4-bedroom? Because it says 3/4.
I think it would be 4.
I think I'd say roughly around 90 square meters. Just
you're
roughly.
saying it's 90
I'd
square
say
meters.
Even more, 100.
Maybe 100.
Okay. What do you think it's going to hammer for?
550.
Okay. So let's say you think it's going to hammer for 550. I would develop that probably at around £1,000 per square metre in renovation terms for the standard of the property and everything else, maybe 800. Once you then factor those two figures in, there's no money in it. So if you've got an emotional buyer and then an emotional buyer wants that house like you've just touched on, it's a property that might not come up and it might be your only chance to get it. There might not be one for sale for 5 years, 4, 3, whatever. You know, it's your chance to get it and get in. But I don't see any money in it. I don't see why you'd look at it and say, okay, we're going to make 100 grand.
But this is why you'd want to be a seller in this situation. This is a perfect opportunity for someone to make money as a seller, to depending on how long they've owned it for, what they've paid for it, etc. It might be that they've inherited it. It could be something that they've inherited and just basically getting money from that they've never had.
I get that, and I think in that case it probably is more than likely somebody's inherited that property and everything else, and they're going to get a nice little bonus at the end of it. But from a speculative point of view, I just don't get how you can make anything out of it.
Agreed.
You've got to think there's 150 grand worth of refurb in there
Minimum.
Yeah.
to get it up to the standard that a Finchley postcode is going to be reaping the reward of that pound per square footage. You're going to need 150 grand because you don't know what the structural issue is. You don't know if the house is falling apart sideways or collapsing inwards, or you don't know what it is. And it could be something as simple as there is an enforcement notice on it, that's why you can't go in, and the auctioneer doesn't want to put their indemnity insurance, public liability indemnity insurance, under scrutiny by allowing people to walk through the door.
And this is totally the opposite to what you would normally buy, by the way.
Yeah.
I know, I get that.
There's no value add opportunity.
There's no value add, 100%. But yeah,
Like I say, the brilliant part of what this video is going to be about and what people should be looking out for is this is the poster child for what an auction lot should be. If you are getting something direct to vendor off market and you think, right, I want to trade it, I want to flip it, this is what you should be looking at.
Especially as a virgin lot as well. First time it's going to auction, first time it's selling. It's
this property here, if that's what you're looking to do, if you have any kind of ambitions to flip or trade a property just to create a quick capital event, then that property there is the cookie cutter that you would be wanting to apply to any property that you buy, because it is perfect.
Jessica, what would you say about this?
Well, I just said I wouldn't touch it as a developer because I think the interest is going to be driven so much.
Oh,
by the time you do the sum of 700 minus 150, that's what it's going to go for,
There
or
is
more.
This is going to. My gut feeling is, I mean, safe's probably there's a good 10% chance that a trader will go, I'm just going to take the hit if I have to put it into another auction below what I paid for it. That's their risk. But I think it's going to be a local community member that wants to go and live closer to family, and they're going to pay full whack, and it won't really matter that they've paid full whack. And I think that's the outcome here. But I think,
one to keep an eye on out then. So maybe for a future episode, who knows if it goes back into auction. So,
well, we will have at the end of the video the results. So, there will be payoff. If you watch till the end, there will be payoff. But now's the fun part. We all get to really kind of guess what we think it's going to sell for. Not what we would pay for it. I'm still terrible at this part of the game. I keep saying I'm not going to pay that for it. But how much do we think it's going to sell? And it's a complete lottery. It's an absolute
I'll kick
guess.
it off 550, I think.
I was going to go in at 550, so I'm going to have to say 555 just to go as close to that as I can.
575 for me.
I'm at 510.
Okay.
Okay, I'm at 565.
Nice.
Oh, quite close.
Anything above 575, I'm winning, yeah?
Yeah. Well, I think it's got that in it.
I just only see somebody emotional buying that, somebody that's making an
100%.
emotional decision. And I get what you're saying, that they're out there. However, that person has to have the money. That person has to have all the money to be able to buy that comfortably.
They will in
They will.
Finchley.
And I'm sure that they will,
Yeah.
like you say, in Finchley. But even then, it's in an auction. How many people go into an auction? Maybe I'll surprise myself. Maybe I'm being a bit naive
You
here.
only need two.
No, you only need one, really.
Well, the one will get you to reserve, but and obviously the 365 maximum, the reserve is going to be 400, right? And that's on the upper end of the 10% requirement. But let's just say that a one bidder, an auctioneer can get that one bidder to reserve, which will be 400,000. We've all said it's going for 500 plus, so there needs to be two people fighting each other minimum, and that will not be a problem with this property.
Will be. But the main thing is, tell us what you think about the property. What do you think the property is going to sell for? And just drop it in the comments below as well, because it's always good to hear from other people and what other people think. Is it going to go for 600? Is it going to go 400? Or do you agree with us at the 500 level?
Okay, guys, so time for the results of this property. So this one, we were really far off the actual prediction of the final result. So our prediction was about 550 for the sale of this property. It did actually sell for only £407,000. So we were about 150k off. And I think just looking at the end values of this property, we're probably a little bit bullish on the end price, so being 750. I think there's some properties on a 4-bed nearby at 800k. However, this one probably would be a little bit smaller. I think it will be a 700k property. And also, we a little bit downplayed the fact that there was no access to this property, and literally, apparently, it was in a massively bad state. So maybe the cost of actually doing it up would be much higher than what we thought. So basically, it's sold for 407. I think whoever bought this is actually going to make good money on this if they do the job to their works and then sell it on the open market, or maybe just live in the property and then have it refinanced with a long-term lender on a residential mortgage. I think whoever bought this, they will do well, and we were very wrong with it. And it's just one of those properties that you can't predict exactly how it's going to happen, even the signs were showing us that this should be really going towards the 500 plus mark. However, it is what it is. Let's see if this property is going to come into an auction again. Maybe it was purchased by trader, who knows. It was definitely being sold by AMG, which is a company that is managing sales on behalf of banks and lenders and all kinds of other companies who might have charges over the property. So AMG was handling the sale. It's really good purchase at 407. We would have bought this for 407 if we knew that this is going to sell for this amount. And let's see. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys find deals as good as this one. And if you bought this property and you're watching this episode, make sure you contact us, and we want to know what plan you have for this property and what you're going to do with it. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next episode.